Okay, welcome to the February 9th Board of Selectmen's meeting. Call the meeting to order. First item is approval of the minutes of January 12th.
Move to.
I'll second Sam's motion.
Moved by Sam, second by Marshall. Any discussion? All those in favor? Seeing all hands raised, motion is carried. Next item is 2020 compensation study presentation. And who's
Carrie's here from KMA. She's done the study to include all of the administrative offices as well as the fire safety that she did last year, kind of combined them into one. She's here to present and tell us what she found and give recommendations going forward. Thank you, Carrie, for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. Does somebody have the presentation to upload, or should I share?
You should share.
Yeah, I'll have you share your screen.
It's still disabled.
Okay, let me try it this way. Where are you, Carrie? I don't think I have to make you a host, do I, or do I?
Yeah, you have to make her a host.
Okay, that's why. Yes. Okay, you're now the host, Carrie.
Okay, everybody see the slide?
Yep.
Okay, great. So to expand on what Rita said earlier, the project purpose was to include the rest of the town office positions that were not included in the prior survey, which had focused primarily on the fire and rescue department. So that was conducted over the course of the last year. And similar to the fire and rescue survey, we went out, we talked to some towns, we gathered data, consolidated the data to figure out where each of the new positions resulted in the market data, and then an analysis of the current salary grades and employees was conducted as well. That one always sticks a little bit switching over. So one thing I wanted to point out, and we talked about this in the prior survey as well, is some of the external market factors. So these have a lot of impact on what the actual cost of labor is in any given area. So even though we are still in a pandemic, and we have been for about a year now, Maine's seasonally adjusted unemployment rate is just 4.9%. That's about 2% higher than it was last year at this time when we were talking about the prior survey, but it's still not incredibly high, and is still below the US average of about 6.7%. So, you know, the numbers tell a part of the story. They don't tell the whole story, but just something to keep in mind. Maine is also the oldest state in the country, and that relates to a lot of problems with hiring workers. There are just a lot more people retiring out of the workforce than there are entering the workforce in the state. That in and of itself is going to drive the cost of labor up because there's more demand for workers than there is supply of workers. There have been documented shortages of firefighters. In the prior survey, we talked about this specifically. I also found a story that I had shared in the full report from Maine Municipal Association, indicating that especially in government municipalities, it's a very difficult space to find workers. It's quoted, the individual was quoted as calling it a silver tsunami. So very difficult to find people because a lot of the people who have experience in the municipal space or in government have been retiring out of the workforce. And then, of course, the state minimum wage increase is something really important to keep in mind. You do have a pay grade right on the line of minimum wage. So as that minimum wage increases every year at the indexed rate, that is something you're going to have to keep in mind. So in terms of the 2021 pay grade structure, what I did was I looked at the original structure from 2016. That was updated based on the fire and rescue survey. And then I took the 2020 results. I reviewed all of the positions against the 2020 updated market data. And you'll see the results of that coming up. The midpoint of the results is how the new bands are created. And then the minimum and maximum of the bands is created by using a range spread. So this is all stuff you saw in the prior survey. We'll review it again just to reiterate how it's developed. Finally, I also included some position realignments that Raymond had already made from the 2016 survey. So there are a number of different changes. So just for reference, here's the 2016 original structure. It started at grade 4, went to grade 11, no positions in grade 10. It has steps 1 through 8, and then from there, just a generalized view of the midpoint to the maximum. So for the 2021 pay grades, there were a few changes. So grade 2, I think is a good one to start with, because that was based on the January 1st minimum wage increase. I was actually out of compliance. So this one has to increase. And what I did was I only increased it to the new minimum wage. So we can talk about strategies on managing this going forward, such as potentially removing grade 2 and just having a broader grade 3. But this is something that you're going to have to pay attention to every year and make sure you're updating it to reflect the updated minimum wage. In the fire and rescue survey, we did not touch grades 11 or grade 9 because there were no positions in the fire and rescue survey in those grades. So those 2 grades were increased based on the market data that was collected. So again, just a quick overview of all of the different grades and what happened. The town office grades are between grades 5 and 11. So some of the grades in the prior survey, we didn't reassess this time, which is fine. We still want to make sure that there's a difference between each of the grades, and everything looked fine. So grades 5 through 8 were updated after the fire and rescue survey. No additional adjustments are recommended for those grades based on additional data collected in the most recent survey. Grades 9 to 10, we just reviewed those were updated. Both of them increased based on the updated market results. And then again, grade 2 below the minimum wage, and we need to keep that on the radar every year. So going into grade 2 in a little bit more detail, I show on the table in the middle, you can see the prior minimum, midpoint, and maximum. The prior minimum was $12.01. I increased it by 14 cents up to $12.15 and kept the range spread. So the distance, the midpoint and maximum are still the same distance as the original grade 2. So again, this is one that you're going to have to continuously increase. But if this is the only grade that is increasing every year, you'll have to keep in mind any compression between grades 3 and 4 specifically, but probably all of the grades above. So this is something where every year you'll want to take a close look at the structure to make sure that the whole structure isn't increasing significantly, causing too many problems as you increase grade 2 based on any minimum wage increases that are happening. Another thing to consider is the potential minimum wage increase in the city of Portland up to $15 per hour. You'll have to see if that has any impact on your grades, and you may have to reassess at that time. Grade 10 was something that really stuck out as a potential for updating. after using the structure for a few years, there's still no positions in grade 10. And there's no market data for the grade as well. I think it makes sense to consider removing grade 10 and increasing the range spread between grades 9 and 11 from 30% to 40% to allow for some overlap between those two grades. You want to make sure that there's some degree generally of overlap between each of the grades to allow for career progression within the organization. So this would simplify the overall grade structure by removing an unused grade, and will make it easier to update everything going forward if you have a more of an overlap between 9 and 10 and there's no unused grade. Another thing that really stuck out was the pay grade steps. So in the overall structure, we have steps 1 through 8 from the minimum to the midpoint. And that can be a really useful structure if you're giving increases in compensation based on those steps. But based on Raymond's straight merit process, where they only offer a merit, they don't offer the merit plus the step or the merit plus an additional percent, I'm not sure that it is useful to continue to maintain all those different steps and the formulas that go into the steps as you have to continuously update the actual numbers in the grades. So it might make sense based on having just the merit increase to remove those, simplify the whole process, and have just the midpoint, the minimum, the midpoint, and the maximum. It creates a little bit more consistency and also flexibility in allowing you to manage your employee compensation. It allows for you to apply performance criteria based on the merit process in order to determine where you're paying individuals. It gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of any union negotiations you may have instead of focusing on the steps, which may or may not even apply at the union level. And it provides a way for you to estimate your expenses. If you have average performers, generally they're closer to the midpoint. You want to apply several different factors, and we'll go over this a little bit later on how to actually use just the 3 bucket focus. And again, the minimum, midpoint, and maximum is not, you're not recommending a new hire start at 1215, but the range is 1215 to 1557. So depending on their experience, where they fall into the organization, their position, it's within the range, not any particular step or bucket. So in terms of managing the structure going forward, besides the changes that I've already recommended, market data should be reviewed every 1 to 3 years. But at a minimum, if you're not able to go through and do a whole full assessment of the data, you should at least consider increasing the bands every year, not just band 2, but all of the bands to keep pace with the cost of at least the annual rate of inflation. You could also use the index rate used by the state of Maine for the minimum wage increases, or the employment cost index from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So a few different ways that you can formulaically increase your bands every year, and you can build that into the budget. But I would choose one method and then stick with that method going forward. So when you're looking at the 3 level bands instead of the steps, you want to apply some guidance to each employee to determine where within those steps they should fall. And that would be based on the minimum, midpoint, and maximum. So using the guidance in the minimum section, if they're new to a job, new to a role, they don't have a ton of experience, they're still learning the role, potentially a below average performer, they're going to be closer to that minimum of the band. The midpoint is really what you should target for experienced employees who've mastered all their tasks, they're meeting expectations, a consistent performer, they don't need a lot of oversight or training, somebody who you're expecting to just get the job done. And then maximum is really for those longer tenured employees. Maybe you have a very critical position, a position that's been very hard to retain, somebody who's a high performer, they're exceeding their expectations, or somebody who's in a coaching or training role, they may be closer to the maximum of the band. And by applying this criteria along with reviewing employee performance will help you kind of estimate your compensation costs going forward. And finally, I wanted to point out how important it is to consider the total rewards. And I know we talked about this in the prior meeting as well, about how to retain, how to attract employees. So thinking through all the different areas that you can apply and create a policy to encourage your employment. And in talking with the team, we were talking through some of the benefits that you offer and the questions that potential candidates have. And so the biggest thing is not only developing your policies and creating your benefit plans, but messaging them in a way that's going to make potential employees excited, or talking to current employees to make sure they understand all the different offerings that you have and how that relates to their well-being, their work-life balance, their financial security, and helping them understand what the town is doing for the employees to help with each of these different factors. So that is my overview. Are there any questions?
Anyone questions?
Very good.
Okay, don't see any questions from people, so thank you. Thanks for the work on that, Kara.
You're welcome. So I will close out of the presentation and give the display back.
Okay,
See. Sue, do you have the, Sue, you need to get the, have her reassign you as the host.
Yes, she has.
Oh, okay.
I do have one raised hand. I don't know if you want to entertain anything right now.
We're not taking questions from the public on this. They, you know, they can discuss it in public comment, but we're not taking questions from the floor. This was a presentation to the select board. Other questions from the board? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Next would be an update
Thank you,
on
Gary.
9 Shaker Woods. Alex?
Hey there. You guys hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Yes, so last Friday, February 5th, I completed an inspection of the dwelling at 9 Shaker Woods with Jared Marston, Health Officer Kathy Goslin, and Fire Inspector Wayne Jones. Overall, we were very impressed with the progress that Jared has made with the property so far. They've cleaned out a significant amount of the trash and miscellaneous items from the house. Did a very heavy amount of cleaning, and they've also removed some of the exterior junkyard items in the kind of the dooryard driveway area in front of the house. So at this point, you know, they've got a master electrician that's going to help them out with some of the electrical work. We've already got some smoke alarms to them temporarily in there. There's going to be some plumbing that's going to be happening here in the next couple of weeks. But they're definitely headed in the right direction now with the house. Obviously, the junkyard portion of this is going to be later on down the road once the snow melts. But at this point, I think, and Kathy can chime in too if she'd like, but I think at this point that we would just be looking for the select board to allow us to continue to work with them and hopefully have them in a situation where they can actually be living in the house in the next month here. because I think they should be able to do that, no problem. Kathy, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
As Alex said, we did visit it. Jared and his mother was there along with another friend. One of their big concerns was having to find a place to live by March 1st. They're not going to be eligible for DHS housing because of their age. Mrs. Stroud is not quite old enough for Medicare, so that's an issue with that. I think I agree with Alex that we were very pleased with what we saw. They made a really good start. So I think our recommendation is going to be that we continue to monitor them, but we allow them to stay at the residence because they're not going to be able to find another place. I do have a list, a short list. It's not short, but a list from the fire inspector of some of the bigger items that need to be taken care of if anyone's interested in that. It's not an all-inclusive list from Wayne Jones, but it's some of the big, more dangerous issues to get taken care of. I know Jared was on board tonight. I'm not sure if he's still listening.
Yep.
But he does wanna, I think he wanted to say something also.
Does Jared have the list of the things from Wayne?
No, not yet. I just got them from Wayne today, but we can make sure that that happens. Some of the things since Friday, he's already taken care of, and he sent us pictures to document that they were done.
Wow, that's great.
Jared,
I agree.
Jared, if you have any comments, Jared, you're muted right now, so you'll have to unmute.
All right. Hey, you guys hear me now?
Yeah,
can.
we can hear you now.
All righty. Yeah, I call, we're making progress, but I call, middle of winter, it kind of slow going, trying to get everything together. Right, but we're still moving on, so.
Marshall?
Alex, define the word house. I'm not sure what building we're talking about.
We are talking about what was formerly the garage.
Okay,
Was converted
thank you.
to a dwelling unit a number of years ago.
And Kathy, I wonder if you could give me the top 2 recommendations that Wayne is making?
There's some flammable and combustible liquid containers along the driveway and walkway, along with some pressurized containers, LPG, welding tanks, etc. And then bringing the electrical wiring up to code. They've started that, but those were probably the 2 big things at this time.
Okay. And they sound relatively easy to solve, I think, so.
Yeah. But those
Okay, thank
things are
you.
okay for him being safe, for them being safe to live in there for now as they work on it?
Well, it's been that way. The wiring, they've already upgraded some. So they did remove a lot of it. As Alex said, when we went in, we were pleased to see the progress they were making. Some of the pressurized containers, it might be tough to remove them in the winter time. It's as
Okay.
safe as it's going to be,
Yep.
Teresa. It's probably safer than them trying to find someplace else, or I can't say safer, but easier.
No, I know what you mean. Nope, good. I'm glad to hear that.
When is the next inspection due on that property?
We haven't said it, but Alex and I kind of went back and forth saying every 2 weeks.
I think that's fine. Thank you.
Yes, good, yes. She can see it, right?
Yeah, I'm not.
See all these people.
Sam, any questions?
No questions. I think it looks good.
Good job.
Yeah.
Very good.
Keep up the work there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll get an update at the next meeting as well. So.
Yeah, how this works, Alt-Y. They already did it once and they wouldn't let me go on.
Yay.
Are they having comments now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Is your alt?
Next would be public comment.
Yeah.
Carrie,
Now your hand is up.
We have one hand up, Mr. Chairman.
okay, Charlie, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And you can hear me, I hope?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Just a point of order, Mr. Chairman. Under the Selectmen bylaws, the public has an opportunity to make comment after every agenda item. So just if you want to suspend the bylaws, I suppose you could do that, but just to a quick tutorial on that particular end of policy for the town of Raymond. I have two quick observations. I wanted to make this during the compensation study portion of the meeting, where if approved, looking at the buckets that were proposed, town manager compensation will have increased $28,000 since 2016, or the equivalent of a 3/4 time paramedic or a paramedic firefighter. So in 2016, in the big bucket, the town manager salary was 103, and under this proposal will be $131,000. It should also be noted that the new recreation director position, entry level, will be equal to the entry level deputy fire rescue chief, paramedic, and $12,000 higher than an entry-level firefighter captain. The recreation director maximum will be $72,000. So those are just two items that were outstanding that I think are due consideration, not only by town management, but by town labor. I wish to also commend the new Raymond Guide to participating in virtual public meetings. It'll be quite a show if the annual town meeting goes virtual. I would add one suggestion, however. The Zoom host for the meeting should remember to close the Zoom meeting after adjournment and the cameras are turned off. The open mic and video is extremely incriminating. Thank you. And oh, by the way, Charles Levitt, East Raymond.
Thank you. Thank you. Other comments?
No other raised hands.
Okay, seeing none, selectmen comments. Okay, seeing none. Town managers report.
Yes, thank you, Rolf. Confirmed dates for upcoming regular meetings. We have March 9th and April 13th. And then we will go into a reminder of our upcoming budget schedule. February 23rd, town manager submits budget to select board and budget finance committee. March 2nd will be our first department head review. March 16th, second department head review. These are all at 6:30. March 30th will be a budget workshop. April 13th, select board warrant review and approval. April 27th, budget finance committee, budget article recommendations. Of course, everything here is via Zoom, 6:30. Then we come into town meeting at Jordan Small Middle School gym. It's going to be an either or. June 1st will be the open town meeting if we can do it, and that would be at 6 p.m. Or it would be on June 8th, and that would be a town election where we'd vote by a secret ballot, as we did last year. Reminder of upcoming election schedule. March 1st, nomination papers available. April 9th, nomination papers are due back in. Reminder of upcoming holiday schedule. Monday, February 15th, President's Day.
Any questions on that? Okay, seeing none, that's the end of the agenda, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Marshall, seconded by Sam. All those in favor? Seeing all hands raised, motion is carried. Meeting is adjourned.